Welcome to the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl. They played 1 year ago, 140 miles to the south of here. Today, Georgia and Nebraska meet again in the Sunshine State, kicking off 2014 in Jacksonville. Good afternoon, everybody. Mike Patrick, Ed Cunningham. It's great to have you with us. Janine Edwards will join us shortly. Each one of these teams comes into Jacksonville without their record-setting star quarterbacks. But for Georgia, we will see the future at that position, and it looks like a bright future, too.
When Hudson Mason took over for Aaron Murray, who was injured in the back half of the Kentucky game, everybody knew what this guy brought to the table because he's a fourth-year player in the system. He gets the ball out very quickly. The receivers talk about how you better have your head around or the ball will hit you in the helmet. Now, luckily for Mason, like when Murray got Todd Gurley back after that midseason ankle injury, this guy is a difference maker. Not 100% yet from that ankle. And in talking to Mike Bobo, the 240-pound Gurley is not quite able to make the cut and have the speed that he had last year. However, during bowl practice, they said he looked as healthy as he's looked than before the Clemson game at the very beginning of the season.
For the Cornhuskers of Nebraska, it has been an up-and-down year, and for head coach Bo Pelini, a volatile year. Janine Edwards has more on that.
Yeah, Mike, to quote Pelini, it's been a long, tough season. And he's not just referring to some of their injuries or losses. It started back in September when an audio tape surfaced of him from 2 years ago bashing the Nebraska fans. Then during their last game of the season, he had a confrontational exchange with an official. After that game, in his press conference, he said, quote, "If they want to fire me, let them fire me." He said the constant speculation about his job status impacted and hurt their football team. He told us it just wouldn't die. I was answering the same questions day after day after day. Well, Pelini finally got resolution when athletic director Sean Eichhorst gave him a vote of confidence. And Pelini said, once it all came to a head, it was great for our program. And we got the feeling that Pelini's extremely bullish on the future of the Cornhuskers. Mike?
Thank you, Janine. And here come the Cornhuskers, 8-4 out of the Big Ten. Getting ready to meet the Georgia Bulldogs. Your thoughts?
It's amazing when you really drill down. We didn't have Nebraska this year. We had them twice last year. All of the noise around the program, you start thinking, well, is there a problem? But when we talked to Bo Pelini just this week, he was as relaxed and, as Janine said, bullish as I've ever heard him about this program.
Sure was.
After that Iowa loss, they actually had 4 to 5 commitments from big-time recruits. This program, if you look at it, when the Big Ten splits, going into next season, I think you have to put Bo Pelini, Nebraska, at 1A or 1B with Wisconsin on that side of the. They weren't going to fire this guy. This team is trending in the right direction.
The Bulldogs, with all the local support here in North Florida, take the field. We welcome you to 2014, a New Year's Day packed with bowl games. We'll get it rolling from Jacksonville, Florida, coming up next. Welcome back to Jacksonville, Florida, the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl. Before kickoff, we check in with Janine Edwards.
Well, guys, we'll be seeing Tommy Armstrong start today, and he is somebody that the coaches say has, quote, that it factor. The players say he's got that mojo. He's 6-1 as a starter, and that's thanks in part to great vision and making good decisions, the coaches have told us, but they've had to keep the game manageable for him. He's just learning defenses and coverages. That's the one thing that he says he wants to do better today. They say he's just learning. We don't want to give him the fire hose to drink out of. We want to give him a garden hose. Mike?
It's a great way to put it. It makes it very simple to understand. Marshall Morgan has it teed up at the 35. Amir Abdullah and Kenny Bell, both with great speed, are deep for the Huskers. And we are underway from the first coast of Florida. Abdullah from the goal line. Spins out of one tackle, but not a second, taken down at the 18. Johnny O'Neill, nice job on special teams. Tommy Armstrong, a record-setting dual-threat quarterback out of the Texas high school system. Played in back-to-back state title games. Anunwa trapped in the backfield, trying to turn the corner, can't. Holy cow, what a shot he took from Quincy Mauger.
Well, and the rain has to be a little bit of a factor here, I think, with a young quarterback in Tommy Armstrong, who hasn't played much. Remember, he missed the last game against Iowa with an ankle sprain, and Anunwa that time did not look sure on his feet at all. The rain just started about 10 or 15 minutes before the game kicked, so maybe these players not quite used to this, because I don't think they had a wet field to warm up on.
Loss of 6 on the opening play. They nearly botched that handoff, and Abdullah is smothered as he got to the 16-yard line. Georgia being extremely physical on defense its first 2 plays.
Of course, Nebraska's Taylor Martinez, who was going into his 4th year as a starter, has a foot injury that just never healed. Tried to go a couple of times, and so they've gone with Tommy Armstrong. But early on, I think Georgia being able to be aggressive, because you know, with Armstrong, a freshman making his first bowl start, I'm not sure that Tim Beck, the offensive coordinator, is going to call much down the field here with this rain.
His problem has been with accuracy throwing, but he can sure do this. He's an outstanding runner, and he takes it out across the 40 for the first down. So they get out of a hole after a 24-yard scramble for Tommy Armstrong Jr.
And what Tim Beck was telling us about Armstrong, he doesn't have the speed, the breakaway speed that Taylor Martinez has, but has a great feel. Right away, he saw that there was nothing open and that the linebackers had dropped too deep. He does have good speed, but a very good runner in space with good power, too.
Throws on the run, completes it to Anunwa for a gain of about 8. Well, they say he doesn't have breakaway speed. He looks fast enough, doesn't he?
Well, but when you're comparing him to Taylor Martinez, I think that's the biggest thing. And let's see Anunwa going down, making... Look at the feet. Everybody is sliding on this. Remember, this rain just started, so these teams didn't have it during warm-ups. I'm not sure that they're used to it. And sometimes you'll change your cleats, so let's see how some of the traction goes as this game goes on.
Janine, what are you seeing down there?
Well, you know what, guys? About 3 weeks ago, the Jacksonville Jaguars, this is their home stadium, they replaced all the grass in the middle of the field between the hash marks. They did not replace the grass on the outer edges, on the seams. So you'll start to see those outer edges getting very chopped up and slippery today.
All right, thanks, Janine. Edwards after the play fake. Pressured. Still looking for some place to go and throws it out of bounds.
Well, that was a really nice job that time by Armstrong. He was trying to get Kenny Bell to break long. You could see him wave Bell down the field, but nothing there to throw it away. Get yourself to 2nd and 10. A pretty aggressive call now that they get to midfield. Tim Beck, the offensive coordinator, I think, feeling a little better. Maybe things getting settled down. And I think that long run for Armstrong is a good help. It's kind of good to lose your wind a little bit, get that adrenaline out of your system so you can settle in.
2nd and 10 for the Huskers. Bell, they like that jet sweep action. What does that do to a defense, Ed, when you always have somebody from speed coming across the face of the formation?
You're half a step slow, because you have to think, I may have to burst to my left to chase this, and then you give the inside handoff to Abdullah. And here comes Nebraska with some pace, getting up to the line of scrimmage, and you can see not great blocking, but enough to pick up a few yards.
Armstrong and overthrows Anunwa, who ran into double coverage. So Nebraska, after some initial success, will have to kick it away.
Well, let's watch the ball handling between the snapper, Gabriel Miller, who's done a fine job for Nebraska so far this year, a true freshman, and the punter, Sam Foltz. Foltz works as the snapper, or excuse me, the holder and the punter, so has good hands, but not much wet ball work before this game, because the rain started when the teams mostly were in the locker room after warm-ups.
Georgia's special teams have not produced anything in the way of a long return, and this is an awful kick. Straight up and to the right. Foltz, who averages almost 42 yards a kick, shanks one, only 17 yards.
Well, the snap looked perfect from Miller. Just missed it. Knew it right away. You know, people say it went off the side of the foot. Almost every punt goes off the side of the foot. It just goes too far off the side of the foot. That's how the ball gets the spin. Is actually kick it on the outside, but Foltz just missed that one.
Hudson Mason is the quarterback out of Marietta, Georgia. He'll toss to Gurley. Georgia likes power football. And Gurley will get a couple. Mason's done pretty well, completing almost 65% of his passes so far. 4 touchdowns, 2 picks. Really gained a lot of confidence in that game against Georgia Tech. They were down 20-0, and he led the comeback when they finally won it in overtime. Gurley again. You may not see the burst from Gurley that you saw last year in his freshman campaign and in the first game this year, because that ankle is still bothering him.
And you go all the way back to the Clemson game, the 75-yard touchdown run, where if you hadn't seen this guy play as a freshman, you thought, 235, 40 pounds that fast. Strained a hip and a quad during that, wasn't healthy for a while, then he sprains his ankle. And the month off helped a bit, but the coach is still not convinced he has his entire burst.
The ankle cost him 3.5 games and cost Georgia valuable positioning. There's a pass that's going to be enough for a first down. Arthur Lynch, the tight end, covered by middle linebacker Michael Rose, and got just enough for the first down.
And Georgia going a little bit fast here.
Hudson Mason has Gurley to his left. Gurley out in the pattern, and they're throwing for him. Get the big guy in space and let him do his thing. Takes it to the Nebraska 40, a gain of 19.
And this is something that the offensive staff has worked extremely hard, is getting number 3 involved in the run game. Here he's going to end up one-on-one with a linebacker, Michael Rose, and a nice little move. Rose just has no chance to keep up with the speed of Gurley. That's something, if you're Mike Bobo, you put a little check mark next to that play.
Gurley back at his more traditional spot, 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And Mason under center. Gurley with the carry. David Santos makes the stop on the last play of the first quarter to TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl. It's 0-0. Play action fake, and it's Bauta, the backup quarterback, who starts this series, a redshirt freshman, Fatone Bauta. And they say he has the lead going in as the incumbent backup for next season.
But the first guy they have who is really athletic at that position, the Mark Richt era. A little strange, though, on 2nd and 7 on the plus side of the field. They had a plan for Bauta. It just seemed like a strange play to bring him in on.
3rd and 8 over the middle to Lynch. The tight end again open in the middle of the field. Down to the 17-yard line. That's his 4th catch here in the first half. He only had 24 for the regular season.
And Mason gets another good pocket and does another good job working the pocket. He comes all the way back to Lynch. This was his 2nd or 3rd read, and now Mason on the run.
Mason made a great decision. Had a lot of room to run. He could have gotten more, except Rantavius Wooten, his wide receiver out there, was getting ready to get in position to get him a block and simply lost his footing and fell down.
It's happening a lot on the edge of the field. Middle of the field's brand new turf. The outside has been through an entire NFL season. We've had some rain. There's a lot of sand in the base there. The footing not good on the outside for either team.
Gurley near the 10. They need to reach the 8-yard line.
This to me feels like the way Lynch is playing at that tight end spot, because it's 3rd and short. Maybe you look at a play action with Gurley and try to slip out. Lynch at 6'5", 254 pounds.
This will be the 11th play of the drive. Mason flushed. Can't get away, and then that could easily be intentional grounding. He just appeared to throw it at the feet of a Nebraska rusher.
And the officials all getting together, and they're going to call it. Now, I liked how they come together. What did you see?
Intentional grounding. Offense. The quarterback was in the pocket, and there were no eligible receivers in the area.
Well, that pretty much covered it all, didn't it?
Yeah, it sure did. But it's just like a sack. So now it's 4th down. The one thing, if you're going to coach Mason up, as it's a terrific rush by Greg McMullen. McMullen, one of the only defensive ends giving some depth with the suspension of Avery Moss. Moss not here for the bowl game for Nebraska. That was a nice job by McMullen.
He's just got to learn to get rid of that ball.
Or just take the sack, because you're still in field goal range. That's a really dangerous play, to just throw the ball into the air. Who knows if it gets kicked up or anything. It's just a dangerous play.
Marshall Morgan, first team All-SEC kicker. 18 out of 20 this year. And he puts his high-powered Georgia offense on the board, finally, with 10:37 to go. Second quarter, Bulldogs up by a field goal. November 23rd was a sad day for Georgia fans. Aaron Murray's career came to an end just over 4 minutes left against Kentucky in the first half. He was thrown to the ground, torn the ACL in his left knee, underwent surgery. What a brilliant career. Set 4 SEC records, including touchdown passes, yardage. He was the first quarterback ever to throw for over 3,000 yards 4 years in a row, and yet I never thought he got the credit nationally that he deserved.
And I think when the NFL scouts, he'll be fine. Come June, July, ACL surgeries are really routine and pretty easy to come back from now. Come June, July, he'll be ready to compete with an NFL team. But I think when NFL scouts start studying the tape, what he did this year with all of the injuries they had, especially at receiver and running back, to manufacture what he did on offense against this level of competition was extraordinary.
Bell on the return, breaks it to the outside with that speed, up across the 35, and here's Janine.
Nice enough to stick around in the ring to talk to us. Mike Tucker just mentioned your career. What do you think about it?
Obviously having some technical problems on the sideline with that microphone. We'll get another one and get back to Janine and Aaron Murray.
And we get our first look at Ron Kellogg, the senior who started the last game of the season for Nebraska. The coaches said they would definitely get him some reps in this game, being his last game as a Husker.
His first play is a handoff to Abdullah, who takes it out to the 39-yard line. Ron Kellogg, the third out of Omaha. His only start, he struggled in the loss to Iowa, but he will always be remembered for winning that Northwestern game with that Hail Mary.
And he was a guy who was adding some depth. Of course, Taylor Martinez goes down with that foot injury early in the season, and then Tommy Armstrong has an ankle sprain against Penn State.
Fake to Abdullah, and a smart decision by Kellogg to throw it away as he got drilled. Garrison Smith was putting on the pressure.
That was a nice job by Kellogg. He's not the runner that Armstrong nor Martinez is. But I think Tim Beck on third down has been a little conservative. Don't be surprised with a draw here to Abdullah.
I wouldn't be. The question is, will the Georgia defense be surprised? And they don't do it. Pressure coming. Hit as he throws. The ball falls harmlessly, and they brought the house. You see a new quarterback, let's come after him and see how he reacts to it. And Jordan Jenkins, number 59, was coming from his outside linebacker spot, and did they unload on Kellogg?
Left tackle just a little slow. Brett Qualley, one of the many injured players from Nebraska up front. An ankle injury for Qualley, but he was awfully slow out of his stance, and Todd Grantham, the defensive coordinator, knew that they could get some edge rush against these hobbled tackles for Nebraska.
Loose ball, still loose. Cornhuskers recover. Reggie Davis bobbled the ball. It's a muff. He never had possession, lost it at the 14-yard line. Josh Mitchell with the recovery. What a break for Nebraska. Unforced error.
Overran the ball a bit. One of the hardest things when you're catching punts is when the ball starts to move. He's running to his right. Davison, as the ball came back to the middle of the field, sometimes balls that have a tight spiral will actually drift in the other direction. And just a huge break for Nebraska.
Armstrong back in at quarterback. 1st and 10 from the 14 for Georgia. Armstrong on the option. Pitch to Abdullah. Made a great cut. Picks up about 9 yards.
What a nice block by Jake Long. Another one of the walk-in wounded for Nebraska. Long, whose brother, Spencer Long, who's out with a knee injury, who was their best offensive lineman. Abdullah slips a little bit, but Long pushes his man right by, and that's right what Abdullah cut underneath.
Boy, did they clear up that left side. For the end zone, Anunwa, touchdown. The official wanted to make sure he had possession, walked over, and then gave us the signal. Nice play action fake by Tommy Armstrong Jr. on 2nd down and 1.
Wow. It's going to be awfully close. I saw the tip of the ball headed for the grass, and I'm sure that we're going to get a review of this. I'd be really surprised if they don't stop it and review it. It looked to me like the tip of the ball may have touched the grass, and this is something I think you have to review. Well, remember, they do review every play as it's going on, so they didn't stop it. So the review officials here from the Pac-12 obviously okay with that catch.
We'll take a look if we have to when we come back. He certainly had his arms under the ball from that angle. Touchdown, Anunwa. Quincy Anunwa has just tied a school record, the 11th touchdown reception in a season, tying the great Johnny Rodgers. Set that record in 1971.
Well, it's obvious that Tommy Armstrong very comfortable with Anunwa. He's gone to him several times. Still not convinced he caught that thing, but a little surprised we didn't get the review.
J.J. Green is the deep man as Nebraska takes advantage of the muff punt. Green 3 yards deep. He'll bring it out. Has a seam up the middle, then cuts it to the outside. Green to the 48-yard line. Heck of a return by J.J. Green.
Green's a young man that they really didn't know what position he was going to play. They recruited him as an athlete, and with all the injuries, especially at running back with Keith Marshall, he had to go to running back. And the coaches talked about when they studied him in high school, he wasn't the flashiest guy. He always didn't outrun everybody, but every time that he needed to make a play, be it as a cornerback or a running back or a wide receiver, he always did a big play in the special teams.
And Georgia's special teams finally get a big return. They have not had a long punt or kickoff return all year until just now. Let's check in with Janine.
Well, Mike, I'm here with Aaron Murray, and you summed up his career earlier as brilliant, and I think we would agree with that. Aaron, when you think back on your 4 years at Georgia and everything that you were able to accomplish, what's the one thing that stands out to you? What are you most proud of?
Just how much fun I've had. It really has been an unbelievable experience to be part of such a great university, a great program with some great coaches and some great friends, some friends I'll have for the rest of my life. And like I said, I really did cherish these past 4 years and looking to be a dog for the rest of my life now.
How would you describe this season? Kind of an emotional roller coaster, and here you are, would have been your final game of your career. You're watching from the sideline.
It's crazy. It's a unique experience to be here on the sideline watching it, not being in there with my guys, but it was fun. I mean, at the end of the day, every single game pretty much came down to the last quarter, the last play, the last drive. So it was exciting. We had some huge wins versus South Carolina and LSU and some fun ones versus Auburn. So it was a great year. Obviously, it wasn't the year we expected, but at the end of the day, you know, like I said, had a lot of fun.
Give us a quick scouting report on Hudson Mason. He's a guy that has sat behind you for 4 years now. You know him pretty well.
Oh, he's tremendous. He's a heck of a ball player, and you know, he's going to be great. He really did a great job of listening to everything I told him, getting the reps when he was able to get the reps. And the biggest thing with Hudson is during the week, he treated Monday through Friday as his game week. You know, he took practice very seriously, and I think that's why he's been able to come in here early on versus Georgia Tech, and in this game and been so successful, you know, his first 2 games.
Well, he learned from one of the best. Thanks for your time, Aaron. All the best to you.
Thanks for having me.
Janine, thank you very much. Aaron, thank you. And the Georgia screen game comes alive. Douglas with the opportunity to play this series. Anunwa out in the flat, and just as fortunate that that was incomplete because it would have lost yardage as Josh Mitchell came up from the corner.
Well, this is Rumpf, who's been battling a hamstring. They weren't sure how much they were going to be able to get out of him the play before. Excuse me, this is the play before. Excellent job by Chris Burnett downfield, but the safety Cooper from Nebraska had bailed out. He has to come up and force that. That is not what John Papuchis, defensive coordinator, wants. He needs a safety coming up to force that.
Douglas lowers his shoulder, gets to about the 11. That last swing pass, by the way, intended for Rumpf.
And Douglas, a guy at close to 210 pounds. We've already seen J.J. Green gives him a little bit of flash behind Gurley, getting Gurley some rest here. But Douglas, a true freshman, they expected to have to get into the game some, but of course, when Keith Marshall went down, he became a bigger part of the plan.
3rd and 6 for Mason. All day to throw. Lost it to the corner and incomplete. Intended for Rhett McGowan, but he got turned around with Ciante Evans in the back corner. And this will bring on the field goal unit.
That play just took forever to get going. Nebraska plays a lot of matchup zone that ends up being just straight man-to-man, and there was nobody open. But a pretty good job by this offensive line, a veteran group for Georgia. They've been giving pretty decent pockets for Mason when he needs them.
So that'll bring on Marshall Morgan, who was already hit from 38. This would be a 28-yard attempt. And he is true again. Marshall Morgan 20 for 22 this season and 15 straight. No wonder he's all conference. 7-6 ball game with 6:53 to go first half. Both teams come in 8-4, 5-3 in their respective conferences. Hopes for better records dimmed certainly on both ball clubs by injuries. Newby and Bell are deep. Bell from the 2. Taken down shy of the 25-yard line. Imani Cross checks in as the tailback. Went the wrong way, then came back, and they go to Sethan Carter.
And Nebraska,
they botched the play in the backfield. It messed up the timing, but Armstrong kept his concentration.
I'm not sure that Imani Cross did not move before the snap. I think if he goes sideways, it's okay, as long as he's not making a move towards a line of scrimmage. But I mentioned earlier, Carter, a guy that the Nebraska offensive staff very excited, got a lot of time because of the injury to Jake Long. You see, Jake Long, excuse me, has the ability in the middle of the field to go make a play.
Spot the ball at the Georgia 44, 1st and 10. Fake the fly sweep to Turner. Armstrong with all day to throw. Throws late, completes it to Bell. Somehow that ball got through a couple of defenders. Quincy Mauger was right there. He thought it was his.
When Armstrong let this go, I was watching the coverage, and there was nobody open, including Bell. There were 3 guys closing into the area. Armstrong gets a good weight transfer, but Mauger late getting over there in the corner of that side. Excuse me, the safety, Corey Moore, also late. Boy, did he fit that in.
Abdullah.
And one guy that's missing for Georgia, Josh Harvey Clemens, who was suspended for breaking team rules, is a huge loss, especially with a team that has a running back like Abdullah. Harvey Clemens, a guy with some size, can go out in space. And we were talking to Todd Grantham. He thought that was going to be a huge miss for this Georgia defense that has had its struggles this year.
I mean, he was a big safety, 215 pounds.
He could play in space, could come off the edge. That's a big loss for this game.
Fake to Turner, keep by Armstrong. Nothing there. Good play by Garrison Smith to stay home. It fits the rest of your offense, that fakes fly sweep.
Awesome.
Try saying that 3 times real fast. Really seems to have an effect on defenses that you want. Armstrong with good protection, throws to the corner and bobbled and dropped by Turner. Holy cow, he was wide open, and Armstrong put it right on the numbers. Got to his body, bounced off his chest.
This ball was in the air for a long time. Turner, a guy who they weren't even sure if he was going to be able to play. He's missed the better part of 5 games. And that ball, how many times have we seen that during bowl season where a ball hangs in the air and hangs in the air? Oh, and boy, did Armstrong put that right where it needed to be.
Actually tried to catch it with his hands and pulled it into his body, bounced it off his chest and lost it. Pat Smith will come on to try a 46-yard field goal. That would be his longest of the season. Plenty of distance. And Pat Smith knocks it through. He's only missed once this year, and that was from 48. So both of these place kickers have had outstanding seasons. And the Huskers with a little breathing room at 10-6. 3:18 left, first half from Jacksonville. Pat Smith on the sidelines. Hudson Mason waiting his turn. 3:18 to go first half. J.J. Green is deep, who had that outstanding return last time. Georgia comes in 119th in the country in kickoff returns. Green with more room to run up the middle again, past the 25. Hudson Mason brings them out. Gurley is the tailback. They'll send him out in the flat and throw to Gurley.
Well, George,
I'll tell you what, I'd do that about 30 times a game, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but if I'm the Nebraska coaches, I'm saying, hey, Rhett McGowan, the receiver to that side, just cleared out the entire side of our defense to get Gurley there. He was running a route, but I wouldn't be surprised if Nebraska coaches complain about a pick. But, you know, one thing to keep in mind here is Hudson Mason, because Aaron Murray, the 4-year starter who got hurt against Kentucky, second to last game of the year, because Murray had so much experience, Mason actually ran the hurry-up drill every Thursday in practice this season. So he's had a ton of reps in this exact situation.
And it's the kind of offense he ran in high school. Again, Gurley off the left side across the 40. You can tell if you've seen him before, he is not 100%. No. That ankle is still bothering him.
And with 2 timeouts,
he's still out there gutting it out.
Yeah, you can see that ankle's not quite there. He seems to be walking a little gingerly on it. He gets into a groove as the game goes on, but boy, this is awfully slow for Georgia. Under 3 minutes with 2 timeouts. That took a lot of time for that play.
This one thrown downfield to midfield to Chris Conley, another injured player. He aggravated an ankle injury on Saturday. They weren't sure whether he'd be able to go in this game, and if he could, for how long. And he is their leading receiver in terms of both catches and yards, so he's critical to their offense.
And it was in last year's bowl game, the Outback, Georgia and Nebraska, and it was long throws, some to Connolly, that really were the difference in that game. None of those so far in this one.
That was the first catch by a Georgia wide receiver. They wanted to set up a screen. Couldn't do it. They end up coming back to Michael Bennett. That was a good job by Mason, because there's pushing and shoving after the play. A lot of it.
Yeah, and there's been a little bit of a tussle. There's been a couple of times where Randy Gregory, the All-Big Ten first-year defensive end out of junior college, and Nebraska needs to be careful. Gurley, and that looks to me.
Josh Mitchell, literally
Mitchell
had to be dragged away from a confrontation.
He's got to be careful. But it started with Gregory, the defensive end, who had gotten into it a bit on the last drive.
Mason, pressure coming up the middle, throws deep sideline again to his tight end Lynch. Lynch has been very, very active. That ball hung in the air quite a while. I'm sure Lynch is thinking, come on, get here.
Well, we already saw Jamal Turner for Nebraska drop what looked like a sure touchdown for a ball that hung in there. Mason falling back a little bit. You know, that's one of the things the coaches are working with. Even with pressure, you got to step in, but got the ball out on time. That's the one thing Mason does. He may not step into every throw, but he threw the ball before Lynch came out. Lynch really good body control for a big player.
The tailback is Green, and they'll give it to him. Trying to use that speed, gets to the 21.
And now Nebraska needs to start thinking about some timeouts here. They've got all three. You know that Georgia's in line for at least a field goal. Maybe not here on second down, but I think after third, you'd probably start thinking about a timeout.
Green hit almost immediately, got the ball in his hands, and Jean-Baptiste was up from the corner to mess up the timing of the play, and then got a lot of help from his teammates.
And Georgia seeming to be, they're lining up, but boy, a lot of clock has run off for Georgia. I know it's third and long, but if you pick up the first, now you're going to be battling the clock to see if you can get any throws into the end zone. They have wasted a ton of time on this play and on a previous play. This is not good management here.
Approaching 30 seconds. Three-man rush. Swing to Green. Lost his footing. Gets back to the 21-yard line.
And now if you're Nebraska, you're going to be sitting here with, I mean, if I am Georgia, I let this go all the way down to 1 second before I call my timeout. And for Nebraska, you're going to go into the half with 3 timeouts in your pocket and no chance to put your offense back on the field.
Marshall Morgan vastly improved from an inconsistent freshman year. He's the all-SEC kicker. And hooks it just inside the right post. 3 field goals in the first half for Marshall Morgan, and we have a 1-point ball game. The Bulldogs with all their points on Morgan field goals. Let's go to Janine.
Bo, I know the weather has kept your equipment guys busy. How much is it impacting your play calling?
No, not at all. I mean, it's not that bad out here. I mean, it's got a little bit of, you know, obviously the ball's a little bit wet. It's not too bad out here, and it's not impacting anything that we do.
Well, you know Georgia's going to come out in the second half wanting to make a statement, and we're already seeing tempers flaring out there on the field. What's your message going to be to your team right now?
Come out ourselves and make a statement. That's what we're looking to do.
Thanks, Bo.
Thank you, Janine. At the half, our score, Nebraska 10, Georgia 9. Now we'll send you to John Saunders for our halftime show. John? Welcome back to the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl. Jacksonville, Florida. Nebraska holding a 10-9 lead over the Bulldogs of Georgia. Georgia was able to move the ball in the first half up and down the field, but they had to settle for field goals. They got 3 of them, but they can't seem to punch it across.
And I think the biggest thing for them and inside that kind of 20 and in is Todd Gurley's health. He just doesn't look like the same guy we saw last year or earlier in the year against Clemson. So for Hudson Mason, I think it's got to come to the screen game. They're missing all of their vertical threats in the pass game, which was how Georgia beat Nebraska last year in the Outback Bowl. So I think for Mason, it's about getting the other guys involved in the screen game around the line of scrimmage, because they just don't have their 240-pound bruising tailback at 100% right now.
Georgia gets the ball first. See what kind of halftime adjustments they may have made. And their drive chart, you don't see a drive over 54 yards. And you see the result of 3 of the 5 drives, field goals.
And give some credit really to Nebraska defensively. This front 7, it's hard to put into context how much better they got over the year, over the season. Of course, a lot of true freshmen out there right now is Malik Collins, but they have gotten so much bigger in the middle. Vincent Valentine's a guy who stepped up. Don't take away what this front 7 has done and the improvement they've made over the season for Nebraska either.
Mason under pressure, sidearms it to Gurley. What a play just to keep it alive. He threw it between two guys who were after him. Thad Randall nearly had him.
Great job by the defensive front. Randall, you get stuck in that place. What a side flip throw. Again, a little bit dangerous. Remember that throw earlier when he got called for intentional grounding, but he's able to slip that in. Good recognition, though, by the front for Nebraska.
Four-man rush. Mason with a lot of time. Throws it right to a defender. Josh Mitchell with the interception. And Mitchell slides in safely at the 38. The 14th interception for that defense.
And earlier in the game, we saw Mason have a tough time with the ball coming out, being a little bit wobbly and getting off track. One thing that they've worked on, he's had some accuracy issues, but this ball just seemed to really float to the inside. Good physical coverage that time by Josh Mitchell. And he's going up against the gimpy Chris Connolly. I'm not so sure Connolly, because of that injury and the good physical coverage by Mitchell, that was more to do than the throw being off by Mason.
Tommy Armstrong, the third, gives it off to his tailback, and Abdullah plows forward. Remember that Nebraska's only touchdown came as the result of a break, a muffed punt deep in Georgia territory. So can they take advantage of another turnover? Perfect throw to the sideline to Nunwa. Excellent timing by Armstrong.
They really like Armstrong. They feel like they've been working in the throw game. He's under 50% on the season, but when his timing is good and he steps into his throws, he's able to deliver it. Good protection up front and pretty good safety play over the top by Corey Moore, but a good throw and catch for Nebraska.
First and goal. Abdullah, no signal yet. He's at the goal line, and they are going to mark him just short.
This guy, for 190 pounds, runs so well. Gets down low. He accelerates through the tackle. Good stop there.
Abdullah. Touchdown. Came in 7th in the country in yards per game, and if you haven't seen him before, you can tell why. He is a good one.
Well, they ran that fly sweep fake to Kenny Bell, and it froze the linebackers, and that looked like a much better block up front on that left side. Jake Cotton, Brent Qualley, these are all guys. Pensick, the center, all guys for Nebraska who are battling some type of lower leg, either ankle or knee injury on this offensive line, playing well.
Smith for the point after. Both touchdowns coming after turnovers. And it's 17-9. The Huskers over the Bulldogs as Abdullah caps that drive. 17-9 Nebraska over Georgia with 10:08 to go, third quarter. The TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl from Jacksonville, Florida. Playing in the rain, about 62 degrees.
I feel like it's a big drive for Mark Richt. The way Abdullah ran on that drive, if they can't get a score here, Nebraska gets the ball back and gets that run game going and gets up 2 scores in the rain. And the struggles that Georgia have had offensively, especially inside the 30-yard line. I wouldn't feel very good if I was a Bulldog fan and we didn't get some points out of this drive.
J.J. Green, 7 yards deep, lost his footing. He wanted to bring that thing out. So Georgia has it out at the 40. Can Gurley get something going here? They'll pick up almost 5. Nebraska was showing blitz. Mason backed off. And they go to a run play, and it looked like Nebraska won the mind game there. It appeared they changed their defensive set And Thad Randall made a nice play from his defensive tackle spot for the stop. Now it's 3rd and long.
Well, and this is where, if you're Nebraska, you're ready for Gurley to catch a screen pass or something like a swing. One thing that they've been doing is swinging him out over here to the left and let the 2 receivers kind of run these guys off to the left.
They want those defensive linemen and the linebackers to think screen constantly because Georgia's so good at it. Mason underneath to Gurley, fighting for yardage. 1st down and more. Gurley. Man, you could tell when he took off, it was everything he had. If that ankle goes, so be it. He's getting every bit of yardage he can on this. And one of the best for Nebraska, Keontae Evans, could not make the tackle.
And this is exactly the matchup that John Papuchis, the defensive coordinator, wants. He wants Keontae Evans, the nickelback who plays all over the field. They had him on Gurley, the right call. Gurley made a nice move, and you're right. That acceleration button's just not quite there for number 3.
Boy, you got to love that kid. He's playing with great heart. For the end zone and overthrown, had a wide open Michael Bennett. Could only get one hand on it. All right, thank you, Robert. Georgia with a drive. They're down to the 26-yard line. Looking at a 2nd and 10 after Mason narrowly missed a touchdown throw. Green moves the pile to about the 21 before he is stood up and pushed back.
Watching number 44 for Nebraska, Randy Gregory, the junior college transfer that they worked so hard to get. Every team, if you looked at the teams that were recruiting this guy, you knew what level he was playing at in junior college.
Oh, it was the top 20.
Yeah. A guy who played mostly stand-up outside linebacker in junior college, just getting used to playing defensive end, down to about 240 pounds. He'll get up to 260 or so during the offseason. He has been a load for
Big
Georgia.
play here, 3rd and 5. Gurley swings out. Instead, they throw to the tight end, Lynch. They have used Gurley running to the flat and Lynch running underneath patterns so beautifully in this game. 6 catches for Lynch. And you notice the quarterback Mason looked toward Gurley. That influences somebody in the defense and opens a hole for the tight end.
What a terrific job by Mike Bobo and the entire offensive staff for Georgia to develop plays for guys like Lynch when you lose as many top line players at receiver, and of course their backup running back and Keith Marshall done a fantastic job of developing things that work.
Really well designed. Douglas is the tailback. He'll get the carry. Douglas wants to throw. You might want to tear that page out of the playbook. Douglas looked uncertain as soon as he got the ball.
And that looks like Chris Burnett, the right guard, who's getting up a little gimpy, but this was excellent coverage downfield by Corey Cooper, the safety for Nebraska. And a really nice job at the point of attack there. Well, it got close, but I think that's the right call.
He was close. And they're going to have to throw this one away as Mason is under pressure.
Let's go back to that one more time. The rule is the guy has to be outside of the pocket, which clearly Douglas was, and that made it a loss of down, which you go for instead of 2nd. Well, it didn't. Yeah. Well, but the ball landed. It was just this side. It was just this side of the yard to make. So technically, I think that was the right call.
Another big 3rd down. Mason with time, floats it to the sideline, incomplete, intended for Bennett. And they will have to send the field goal unit on again. At some point, the Bulldogs are going to have to crack the goal line if they want to win this game.
And that was all about Keontae Evans working one-on-one with Michael Bennett. He was so physical when Bennett came out of his break, just knocked him completely off his route.
Let me go back to the intentional grounding call. We've seen so many times quarterbacks throw the ball out of bounds, and you really have to estimate at what yard line that might have crossed, and they give them a couple of yards here and there. If you got the ball within 3 inches of the 10-yard line, I don't know how you make that call for an intentional grounding.
I agree, and you would have. It really isn't that big of a loss, though, because it's just like if you'd have gone back. The loss of down is just like you ran the play, so not a huge penalty.
17-12 back after this. 17-12, Nebraska on top of the Bulldogs. And Nebraska with a chance to run it back in the person of Kenny Bell. Flags down. One at the 10, one at the 27. There's at least one of those.
Yeah, Georgia fans finally getting into it. They got Nebraska backed up, cut it to 5, getting a little help.
They're fired up now. Tommy Armstrong Jr. brings them out. Abdullah out to the 10. Marlo Herrera, the most valuable defensive player on this ball club, and they have two really good inside linebackers on this defense with Ramik Wilson and Marlo Herrera. The crowd exhorting Georgia's defense for a stop here. Ball's loose. That is so close to a safety. It looks like they're going to mark it just outside the goal line. You say Tommy Armstrong Jr.'s arm was down outside the goal line. Watch this.
A low
right ankle.
A low hard snap. And he is down right there because the wrist hits. Remember, it's the hand and the foot. That is awfully close.
Nebraska will snap the ball a length of the football away from the goal line.
And I think you're looking at a quarterback sneak here if you're Nebraska. Just no reason to do anything slow.
And they want to throw. What a play call. Anunwa. He's going to go 99 yards. Holy cow, what a call.
There is a flag down on the 42-yard line, and the guys on the sideline for Nebraska, the left side, are actually kicking the flag off the field. They've got to be careful here. There is a flag down on the Nebraska sideline, 42 left side. Yeah. So the flag was for excessive celebration. It's a celebration warning on Nebraska, not anything. I was thinking maybe Anunwa had stepped out of bounds and had not established himself back in the field of play to be the first to touch it.
You'd hate to see that one come back. Yeah. That was such a courageous play call.
And the safety for Georgia just thought exactly like I did that this was going to be a run inside, and you could see the corner to that side pointing to Anunwa as he was running free, and the safety gets over there late, doesn't make it. That has to be the longest touchdown. That ball was on the, if you move that ball back 1 inch, it was a safety.
Just to send your redshirt freshman, inexperienced quarterback back into the end zone on that, in that situation, and then to have him throw a perfect pass. And you could say that's the longest touchdown pass you can possibly throw. You couldn't get any closer to the goal line.
Well, the truth is, if you do max protection and tell your quarterback, the last thing you need to do is take a sack here. But Shaq Wiggins completely lets Anunwa go, and Quincy Mauger comes over and tries to go for the big hit instead of the tackle. And I think that's as close as you can get to a 100-yard touchdown in college football.
Welcome back to the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl. They're still celebrating on the Nebraska sideline, and why not? The longest play in school history.
I'm just going to say the longest play in college football history. Literally, that ball could not. It was touching the goal line of Nebraska. And, you know, really a nice call by Nebraska, because as long as your quarterback knows I got to take a 5-step drop and heave it, the worst that's going to happen is you're either going to punt from your 1 or your 3. If you ran a quarterback sneak, you're still going to be punting from your own end zone. So not that crazy of a call for Nebraska, but I didn't expect it, and obviously Georgia didn't.
J.J. Green on the short kick. Lost the ball. And they're going to be in there digging to see who's got it. How many times will it change hands when they get down there?
I've been on the bottom of a few of those, and I used to win a lot. I would use my leg, because somehow your leg would be in there and the guy's arm, and just I'd use my leg to pry it free.
Georgia hangs on.
And a noon one now, the Nebraska single season touchdown reception record with a 99.8 yard touchdown.
He's got a record that'll never be beaten. It might be equaled, but.
And let's go back to watch what happens as Kenny Bell is the slot receiver, and watch Mauger, the safety. He gets late over there because he saw Kenny Bell to the inside and he froze for 1 second. But watch Mauger as he turns and he's just completely out of position because he saw Kenny Bell running that post. So it was 2 vertical routes to that side. Really nice call by Tim Beck.
Gurley trying to get to the outside. Randy Gregory will not allow it. 3:45 and counting, third quarter. Georgia's been limited to 4 field goals. Now they're down to Nebraska by a dozen. Mason, good pass protection. Again, they've done a nice job for him. Now he's flushed and throws it away. Michael Rose was putting pressure on him. We'll check in with Janine.
Well, guys, at halftime, Mark Richt told me the #1 thing that they had to guard against was turning the ball over. And, of course, coming out after the half in that very first series, that's exactly what they did. And he has told me that the weather conditions have definitely impacted his play calling. He says guys are just not quick enough getting off their breaks. He said both teams have said that the field is a mess. But he definitely is not happy with both his offense and his defense right now. Lack of effort on their part.
All right, thanks, Janine. Abdullah is back. Makes a fair catch just outside the 25, a punt of 38 yards.
And to get to a place where they're up 24-12 against a solid SEC opponent on January 1 Bowl. Pretty extraordinary job, I think, that this team did to hold together and have an offense that can win games.
Pressure coming. The ball's thrown underneath and intercepted by Shaq Wiggins. His second interception of the season and a poor throw by Tommy Armstrong Jr. That's the break Georgia needed.
Well, Wiggins certainly knew this was a stop route by Kenny Bell. Then he went to run the slant. And that ball just came out funny. That ball was supposed to be thrown way to the inside. Don't take anything away from Wiggins. Good break on the ball. But you could see Kenny Bell had to stop his route to come back to it. Armstrong just off the mark.
And Nick Saban may be able to fire him up a little bit. Gurley. Nice throw by Mason. Gets it down to the 33-yard line. They need to reach the 29 for a first down. Michael Rose had the coverage for Nebraska.
I want to reset the timeouts for Georgia. They did not use the challenge there, so they didn't lose the timeout. So that was the first of the half for Georgia.
Gurley, straight ahead power. First down. And now, down 2 scores. I don't think Georgia can settle for field goals anymore.
I think you have to think about going for it here. You do have an entire quarter to go, and other than the long throw by Nebraska, they've been helped out by turnovers by you. So you're right. They're close here. Plus, when you're down 12 a field goal, you're still down 9, which is still 2 scores. That's the big deal.
Play action fake to Gurley. Mason keeps the play alive and then throws it away.
The one thing that Nebraska has done, especially when Georgia gets inside the 30, they have locked down the receivers. John Papuchis, of course, Bo Pelini has always run a matchup zone. They run a lot of man. They recruit really aggressive, big defensive backs, and they have been sensational in the red zone. And Georgia with only 2 wide receiver receptions in this game because of the coverage by Nebraska, and of course the injuries to top-line players for Georgia.
Quick throw complete. Rumpf, another injured player who missed 2/3 of the season, picks up the catch here.
And here
Nebraska's defense is helped by those senior corners. Those guys are good. Quick play trying to get the first down, and they'll mark it at the 15.5-yard line, which is enough to move the sticks.
Well, when you add Josh Mitchell Jr. into the mix with Stanley Jean-Baptiste and Ciante Evans. Evans, of course, a guy who will play, I believe, a long time in the NFL, but they have just played great. And Georgia just does not have the speed anymore because of the injuries to get open.
Mason under pressure, lost the ball. And very fortunate that it fell just behind him. He turned around and covered it. That will be the final play of the 3rd quarter. Nearly a disaster for Georgia, but right now they're down by a dozen as we go to the final 15 minutes from Jacksonville, Florida.
And to go back, Georgia does still have their coach's challenge. I thought Mark Richt had called a timeout, but it was the officials who stopped it before to see if that was a safety on Armstrong before that long throw. So Georgia still with 2 timeouts and their coach's challenge.
Mason with time, floats it to Gurley, and Gurley will walk in. 25-yard touchdown pass. And how does Gurley get away from everybody?
Well, it was a crossing route in the middle, and Michael Rose, a freshman linebacker, it's the 2nd time we've seen him not be able to track Gurley. But Gurley ran a crossing route with Arthur Lynch, the tight end, and that wash pulled the linebacker off. That's a walk-in.
24-18 extra point pending. Gurley with 95 receiving yards today, 49 yards on the ground on a bum ankle. Georgia right back in it, down by 5 to the Huskers. It's been a good ball game. We still have 14:49 to go. Yeah, Newby and Bell are deep. Bell from the 5. Little stutter step, and they'll take him down at the 20-yard line. Abdullah. We'll see a big dose of him. He'll pick up a couple.
And if I'm Nebraska, just nothing risky here. Absolutely nothing risky. Abdullah would be my guy and I would try to get Georgia to burn these timeouts as fast as I could as well.
Fans, we hope you'll tune into ESPN3 for the post-game trophy ceremony presented by Capital One. That's immediately following this ball game. Fake the fly sweep, give to Abdullah again to take it out to the 20. Georgia has 2 timeouts left. And just used one here. Or did they?
No, I believe it was an equipment timeout.
It was a player lost a helmet, and that was Herrera, so he'll have to come off for a play. It's huge 3rd down here, 3rd and 4.
And on this for Nebraska, it's not about burning clock. It's about that first down. So they have shown that they're very confident in Armstrong in this shotgun with routes down the field.
Four-man rush. The pass wide of Anunwa. And they'll have to punt the ball away with 3:33 to go in the game.
You know, for Todd Grantham, the defensive coordinator for Georgia, this has not been a great year. But if you look at their win against South Carolina, their win against LSU, their win against Georgia Tech, in each one of those games, even though their defense didn't play great, they made stops when they had to. And that right there, I think you could put in the category with Georgia Tech, LSU, and USC. When they needed a stop, they made it.
And it'll let this one bounce, and it'll cost them 6 or 7 yards down to the 38-yard line.
But if you're Nebraska, with those 2 timeouts, you cannot let them tick this clock down and get the touchdown.
Down the middle, Conley makes the catch, takes a shot and holds on. He was drilled by Cooper. Big time catch, big time throw by Mason, a gain of 29.
How many plays has Conley made here in the second half to help Georgia out? A guy who was not even expected to play with an ankle injury suffered in practice last week.
Blitz. And Mason throws it away.
Well, you don't have to have a ton of speed, which we know Chris Conley doesn't because of his injuries, to run down the middle of the field and puts a really terrific move on number 11. Green was the guy who caused the incomplete pass with the hit on the drive before, but that time Conley, he may not be 100%, but that was still a pretty good move on the safety.
They'll hand it off to Gurley. There's nowhere to go. Great defense. Cooper comes up from the secondary. Ankra, the defensive end, stood his ground, and a big third down. Obviously 4-down territory here.
Right, so if you're Georgia, remember what they did on 3rd and 10 the last time was they ran J.J. Green. So with Gurley in there, don't be surprised if you get some type of swing pass. It looks like a run here, though.
They give it to Gurley, cuts it back, lost his balance, dives forward, and he dove right where the sticks are. This is going to depend on the mark, whether it's 4th and inches or 1st down.
It looked to me like he was short. Again, nice call because you know you're going to go for it on 4th, and here goes Georgia very quickly. Nebraska needs to have somebody at the line of scrimmage.
Trying to push the pile, and they will have enough for a 1st down. It didn't look like Gurley got a great spot either.
Looked like he came up just a touch short, but because it was inside a yard, Georgia just rushed up to the line. Really good push. What a nice game by David Andrews, the junior center. Good push there. We've seen him pull a couple of times. Big game for the junior offensive lineman.
That used to be illegal. You couldn't push from behind. Now the only thing is you can't pull, but you can push. Fake to Gurley. There's a post and an incomplete pass to Wooten. There was some contact, it appeared, when Wooten made his cut.
Josh Mitchell, who had an interception earlier, has played pretty well. But now here you are, 2nd and 15. You've got to start thinking, what do we have that can get 6, 7, 8 yards? You have Gurley in there, although he's looking really tired. Gurley's looking really worn out, so maybe some type of screen or draw. But Mason, I think this is a pocket pass for him because Gurley's tired.
2nd and 15 for Hudson Mason. Give to Gurley on the sweep. Blockers in front, cuts it back. Gurley will be marked back at the original line of scrimmage, so it'll be 3rd and 10.
And now, unfortunately for Nebraska, with just that one timeout. And look, I get it. If you don't like what you had called, you use the timeout and try to get set. But this is coming down to where Nebraska's just not going to have any time offensively, and I don't think with one timeout they're going to be able to save much at all.
This is do or die.
Yeah,
you either stop them or don't.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Gurley again, room to run, and just caught by the ankles by Corey Cooper, who may have just saved the game. First of all, what a call on 3rd and 10. What a move by Gurley to get free, and Cooper made the tackle of his career.
And this is where you know Gurley's not quite 100%, but I also think the field conditions make a difference. This looks like all the world. Look at Gurley have to gather his feet to make that cut. That's just not what you see from this guy when he's 100% healthy. Take nothing away from Cooper. Kept his head up, wrapped up with his arms, but now on 4th and, let's call it 2.5, maybe 3, Nebraska. You take the timeout if you're Georgia, thinking this is it. This is the ball game.
Did you see all the green in front of Gurley? If he breaks that tackle.
I think field conditions and health. Again, I don't want to undercut Cooper. That was a terrific tackle, but it took way too many steps for Gurley to get going there. And I think 4th and 3, to me, this is all about number 3.
He has been the workhorse as usual.
Watch him out of the backfield. He's been so good in the pass game.
They'll send him out over the middle. They're trying to check him down. The pass over the middle, incomplete. Intended for Lynch, the tight end, and it's broken up. Nebraska will take over on downs. Should have caught that ball. Boy, that was a good throw by Mason, wasn't it?
And it's unfortunately for Arthur Lynch, the senior tight end, the second ball that he's dropped. Remember the drive before, he also had a drop. Just took his eye off it for a second. Santos was trailing, but was not close enough to knock that ball away. And if that's a clean catch, I'm not sure Arthur Lynch doesn't run into the end zone.
Just turned his head just before the ball got there, looking to see what was standing between him and the goal line.
You look at what Bo Pelini and this staff has been able to do with these injuries on their offensive line and losing a 4-year starting quarterback that is explosive as Taylor Martinez. To get 9 wins out of this season, that's a darn good coaching job.
You know, when I heard that Bo Pelini had said, if they want to fire me, go ahead and do it, I assumed it was said in anger. Then when I actually saw the soundbite, and it wasn't, it was very reasoned, I saw it very differently. And I tell you what, he's got this program headed in the right direction. They have never lost more than 4 games under Bo Pelini in his tenure. They are in a division that they should be able to contend in the Big Ten West year in and year out. I think they're in a pretty good situation. An exciting ball game this afternoon between Georgia and Nebraska. They have played in bowl games 2 years in a row. I want to thank everybody on the crew for an exceptional year, especially my partner Ed Cunningham. It was just a great joy to work with you.
Thank you, Mike.
We have just had a ball all year long. Once again, our final score: Nebraska 24, Georgia 19. Coming up next, it's Sports Center. Thanks for watching, everybody, and good afternoon from Jacksonville, Florida.